Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we are going to begin the process of going over all the players that have had top 30 visits with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this pre-draft process. There's a lot more names yet to be unveiled. The Bucs, I believe, have only had 12 or 13 top 30 visits so far to this point. It's been reported by various names and outlets and whatnot, all of these different types of names. I'm just going to go over them as we go through the names. Today, we are starting at wide receiver. The names are as follows. Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden, that was reported by Ian Rappaport. Iowa State wide receiver Jaylen Nowell, that was reported by Justin Mello. And Stanford wide receiver Elic Ayomanor, that was reported by Evan Winter. Let's go ahead and start off with the biggest name on the list so far to this point, and that is Matthew Golden coming in. Now, I am using Pro Football Focus's big board. I know some people sometimes disagree with it. I, for one, like the accessibility to the board and all the different write-ups that we have seen for these different types of players. And Matthew Golden checks in at number 21 on the Pro Football Focus big board. So the 21st, I should say, if I'm going to use proper English, best player in this upcoming NFL draft according to Pro Football Focus. That's certainly notable. And whenever I saw that ranking, I thought back to the different quotes that we've heard from Todd Bowles, from Jason Light, where it essentially is painting this picture of, yes, we understand that we have some very big needs on the defensive side of the ball. And I still think that's the route that they should go. James personally thinks that that should be the route that they go here early in the NFL draft. But the Bucs have left that window open to say, hey, if we think an absolute game changer is available on the offensive side of the ball, we're not going to pass that up. Could that guy be Matthew Golden in the Buccaneers' minds? I may have my opinion of what I think the Buccaneers should do in round 1, round 2, round 3, especially in round 1, but the Bucs could completely go a different course, right? They've done it before, and they could very well do it again. Matthew Golden is 6 feet tall, 195 pounds, had a receiving grade of 75.6 last year, according to Pro Football Focus, a contested catch rate of 61.1%. That's pretty darn good for a wide receiver who's only around 6 feet tall. Not bad at all, in my opinion. 987 receiving yards in 2024, 9 receiving touchdowns. He played 118 snaps in the slot, 376 snaps, I should say, as a perimeter wide receiver. Now, NFL.com has him graded out to become a good starter within 2 years. He also ran a 4.29 40-yard dash. That's certainly going to help his case as well. And it is understandable to see why Matthew Golden is a first-round caliber wide receiver. He is a very talented young man, and he has so much versatility in terms of playing in the slot, playing in the perimeter. These are all valuable things, right? And you would have to assume that if he were to be drafted by the Bucs at pick 19, as much as everybody, including the Bucs themselves, love Jalen McMillan, to spend the 19th overall pick on a receiver like Matthew Golden, if that is a possibility, he would very likely be your wide receiver 3 to open up the year. And think about the tremendous depth that they would have at wide receiver at that point. Everybody already believes the Bucs are very deep in terms of their wide receiver room. You add a guy like Matthew Golden to that list, I mean, you're looking at already adding to one of the better wide receiver rooms in the league. That would just solidify it even more so, in my opinion. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Matthew Golden, and I almost said Jamel Dean, and Jalen McMillan. That is so much talent in that wide receiver room. And I think you could obviously see the future of Matthew Golden and Jalen McMillan as your wide receivers 1 and 2 after a couple years from now, right? Whenever Mike Evans might be done at that point, maybe Chris Godwin is either done or leaves to go to a different team at that point. Golden and McMillan would very likely be your 2 outside starting wide receivers at that point. So I understand the appeal of Golden as a draft prospect, but I'm still going to maintain my stance of, hey, early round type of stuff, especially round 1, James, is more comfortable with them going to the defensive side of the ball. But I do understand and appreciate that Matthew Golden is a good prospect. You then have Iowa State wide receiver Jaylen Nowell. Let's see what is going on with Mr. Jaylen Nowell here out of Iowa State, coming in at number 77 on the Pro Football Focus big board. Jaylen Nowell, according to ProFootballFocus.com, 5'11", 200 pounds. Had an 81.7 overall receiving grade in 2024, a 52% contested catch rate, and had a 73 overall grade against man coverage. Seems like Jaylen Nowell is another very solid wide receiver. Actually put up some fantastic stats while at Iowa State in his final year. 1,193 receiving yards and 8 receiving touchdowns this past season. Whenever you look at a guy, at least in the 70s, in terms of your prospect ranking and whatnot, you're looking at a guy that would probably be a third-round selection, I think is a fair thing to say. Now, I'm curious to hear people's opinions on whether or not the Buccaneers should or shouldn't take a wide receiver in round 3. By the way, NFL.com has him to be an eventual average starter in the NFL. He ran a 4.39 40-yard dash, by the way. He also had 23 reps on the bench press, so has very decent speed, good strength in there as well. 41.5-inch vertical jump and 11-foot 2-inch broad jump. So he's absolutely got a fantastic athleticism to him. In fact, he graded out as the third most athletic wide receiver in the 2025 NFL Combine. And I am curious here, 339 snaps in the slot this past season, 133 snaps out wide. So if you do take a guy like Jaylen Nowell, say in round number 3, does that mean you are playing Chris Godwin more on the outside? Does that mean maybe some more opportunities for a guy like Jalen McMillan getting into that rotation? Because last year, as we all remember, Chris Godwin had fantastic success in the slot under Liam Cohen as offensive coordinator before he sustained his injury. You imagine the Bucs would possibly look to continue to go to that well, but if they don't, if they do say, hey, we're going to use Chris Godwin more on the outside, and Jalen McMillan is also going to be an outside perimeter receiver as well, maybe you can see Jaylen Nowell coming in as a third-round type of player, maybe second round. Again, I'm not the most up-to-date in terms of like, hey, this guy's a second-round guy, objectively, right? I think also some of these things are very subjective. But if you do get a guy like Jaylen Nowell, seems like he is very much primed to be a slot wide receiver coming up here in the NFL, as that is what he primarily played during his time at the college football level. In fact, all 3 years, 2022, 2023, and 2024, every single year, he had over 100, at least over 100 more snaps in the slot versus out wide. So seems like Jaylen Nowell is born to be a slot wide receiver going into the NFL. And could that be a fit for the Buccaneers? I'm not sure. I'm not too sure because of the success that Godwin did have in the slot in this past year. I personally believe they would want to continue to go down that well. But again, it's not my decisions, right? It's not my decisions. But that is Jaylen Nowell. Let's go ahead and take a final look at Elic Ayomanor. I'm not even sure if that's how you say his name, but we are going to go ahead and take a look at him, the 37th ranked player on Pro Football Focus's big board. That is very interesting indeed. Comes in at 6'2", guys. 6'2", 210 pounds. I was almost about to say 610 pounds by mistake, but very interesting size there for Elic Ayomanor. He is obviously different than the other two wide receivers we just mentioned, right? He is a much bigger go after it and get it type of wide receiver. Your prototypical perimeter wide receiver. A 74.3 receiving grade according to Pro Football Focus, only a 48.3% contested catch rate though, an 8.7% drop rate as well. Not great. Does need to do a little bit better with his hands, in my opinion. But he did have 831 yards this past season in 2024 and 6 receiving touchdowns. He actually did better in 2023 with 1,022 receiving yards and 6 receiving touchdowns in there as well for Stanford. Now, he is graded out to be a good backup with potential to develop into a starter, according to NFL.com. According to Lance Zierlein, he is projected to go in rounds 3 to 4. He ran a 4.44 40-yard dash as well. So honestly, pretty decent speed for a guy of that size that, again, over at 6'2", over 200 pounds. Pretty good size overall, right? And whenever you get to round 3 or round 4, I do think that improves the chances of having a legitimate conversation of a wide receiver, in my opinion. People may disagree with that. They may agree with that. I'm not sure. But I do think it does increase those chances. And if the Buccaneers do feel they want a little bit more depth at that outside perimeter wide receiver, Jaylen Nowell seems like he could be that option. Again, 407 snaps out wide in 2024 compared to 62 in the slot this past season, 413 in 2023 compared to the 68. So while we saw Matthew Golden play more of an perimeter wide receiver, but some in the slot, and then you had Jaylen Nowell, which is the exact opposite. He is playing, majority in the slot versus perimeter. You then have a guy like Elic Ayomanor who's just, hey, I'm a perimeter outside wide receiver, and he's certainly built like one. Right. By the way, according to Lance Zierlein, Jaylen Nowell is projected to go in round 3. So the Bucs have spread out a little bit in terms of their interest in wide receivers. Matthew Golden, round 1 guy. Jaylen Nowell seems to be a projected round 3 guy. Elic Ayomanor, round 3 to 4. So the Bucs are certainly doing their homework and mixing it up a little bit, right? You have Jaylen Nowell, who's more of the slot guy. You have Elic Ayomanor, more of the outside perimeter guy. You have Matthew Golden, who's somewhere in between. So I am going to be curious to see what the Buccaneers do at this wide receiver position. They have taken a look at 3 interesting, diverse wide receivers who all offer you something different. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Buccaneers continue with these options going forward, as they've already met with Matthew Golden, Jaylen Nowell, and Elic Ayomanor. But what do you guys think about this? Let me know your thoughts and opinions about this down in the comments section below. I would love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. Actually, real quick, I do want to talk about Elic Ayomanor real quick. He could be a good outside option. I would want that catching ability to improve. And again, you talk about the future when you talk about wide receivers, right? Because Godwin and Evans, they're under contract. I know Evans' contract is up after next season, but I do believe if he doesn't retire, the Bucs would look to bring him back. So I think whenever you also take a look at a guy like Elic Ayomanor, that is more of a guy who, hey, strong, big, outside perimeter wide receiver, could complement very well with a shifty route running type of guy in Jalen McMillan for future reference, right? But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts and opinions about this down in the comments section below. I'd love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. And as always, guys, I will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now and go Bucs.